This video will deal with distribution. The distribution of products plays an extremely important role in marketing planning. It must be obvious that when products are made within the companies, they reside within the companies. They need to be distributed. They need to be taken to the customer or to the place of sale. So distribution is the final phase, but it's a very important phase. It must also be got right. It must be conducted in an efficient and orderly manner. The distribution is the process of delivering goods to the end customer. It's as simple as that. It simply delivers the goods to the final customer. The process should be as smooth as possible. It should be a simple transition from one place, moving it to the other place, moving it from the manufacturer to the consumer, or to a place where the consumer can get the good. So, for example, it may distribute to warehouses, or it may distribute it directly to retailers, or it could even distribute directly to the consumer. There are different possibilities. The marketing planning process identifies and considers suitable distribution channels and intermediaries. So in looking at the marketing planning framework, it's important to critically evaluate the various distribution channels that are available in order to select the most efficient, the best one. And best would probably be best defined as the interplay between price or cost and efficiency and reliability. So the marketing planning team must identify the appropriate distribution channels. Should it go by lorry or van, or by train, or by aeroplane, or should it go by ship? Should it be posted out, or use a special courier? How should the product leave the premises? What's the best way of distributing the product? That's the point. Of course, if the business is dealing with information, if it's a service industry dealing with information, distribution may not be as problematic. The distribution of the final product could be a document which is emailed to the client, or it could be some calculations which are again communicated electronically with the client. So with the service sector, there is the possibility of using internet facilities for distribution. But for physical products, there must be some effort to try and work out the most efficient and the most cost-effective method of delivery. So distribution ensures that the right products are in the right place at the right time. And that is the requirement of an efficient distribution system, that the products are in the right place where the customers want them, or where the clients want them, and they're there at the right time. They're there when the customers want them. Different products require different distribution methods. There are no limitations on the number of intermediaries used. The choice is dependent on the type of business. So, for example, some companies, if they're making a particular product, they may use several intermediaries. They may distribute their products to a large number of intermediaries, a large number of warehouses, for example. They may not just simply distribute to one. They may distribute to several. It depends on the nature of the product and what the marketing plan requires. If the marketing plan requires that the product be available in different geographic locations, then the business may distribute to warehouses in different geographic locations. So there may be a large number of intermediaries to be dealt with. But it depends really on the nature of the market and the nature of the product as to which is best. There are three methods an organization can apply when planning for distribution. Three methods which the organization can apply. It can use direct selling, so cut out the middlemen and sell directly to the public. It depends on the product, and it depends on the capacity of the business to be able to cope with a lot of small orders. If the business is, in a sense, tooled up for that, then that's okay, that's acceptable. But selling to the public has got its advantage. There's no commission taken out after the product leaves the factory or leaves the place of production. On the other hand, there is the cost of dealing with a lot of customers and dealing with return products which are faulty, or issues about contact with the customers, and all of the marketing issues that go with direct marketing, after sales services and so on. So it's not a cheap alternative, but it is a possibility. The business could rely on intermediaries to take part of the selling process. So the company can distribute, let's say, to a warehouse, then the warehouse will try to advertise and promote the product, because the warehouse wants to move the product and get its return on its investment, on its purchase. So if the warehouse buys the product from the company, it wants to sell it on, and wants to sell it on as quickly as possible to turn over its cash. It doesn't want it sitting idle in the warehouse. So there is pressure on the wholesaler to try to promote the product, advertise the product and promote it. So there's a sharing of interest. The company wants it sold and the warehouse wants it sold. It could be a combination of both. There could be dual distribution. It could be that the company sells to the warehouse, but it also sells directly. Of course, it must give some assurance to the warehouse that in selling directly it will not undercut the price that the warehouse can get. So care must be paid to the pricing policy so as not to alienate other channels, warehouses, retailers and so on. So if it's selling to the public and selling to warehouses and to retailers and going down different channels, it must ensure that those channels are capable of generating a profit also. Now, the importance of distribution. Well, location. Intermediaries help organizations reach the wider customer groups. So, as I said earlier, it may be that warehouses are dispersed geographically. So distributing to one point, perhaps in a different region, a different area of the country, means that there's a centre within that region for the product and for its distribution to customers. And that's logical, that's efficient. So intermediaries help organization reach this wider customer base. Customers in different areas of the country can get access to the product because the product has been distributed to them. Lack of knowledge. Well, manufacturers don't always have the right skills. They don't have the right knowledge and the time to be able to sell directly to customers. They rely on intermediaries to do that for them. It depends really on what the core business is for the manufacturer. If the manufacturer's core business is making the product, and that's what it's good at, but it's not too good at marketing, certainly marketing directly to the public, if it's not good at that, then it's best to engage others who are. So selling the product to intermediaries is the right course of action. The intermediaries can then market the product and move the product to the final customer. Segmentation. The advantage of a wide range of distribution channels to meet different customer segments. Well, customers can belong to different segments. The market may be highly segmented by gender or by age, by income levels, by in various ways. Depends on the basis for the segmentation. But having distribution channels in place, in situ, in those areas, means that perhaps different segments of the market can be more easily addressed, because the distribution is being dealt with by people who know the customers, they have an expertise, they know what the market is, they know the segments, they know how to deal with the market. The following must be taken into account when we look at the importance of distribution. How many intermediaries will be required and their effectiveness in delivering goods. So how efficient are the intermediaries and how many are required? The business must decide this. The business must do some research and think certain intermediaries are very good, they're very efficient, they've got a very proactive approach to marketing and to pushing the material and the goods out of their warehouse, to selling it on to the final customer. They're very active people. Now, if the research passes this back to the business can then start to decide which intermediaries to approach and what are the terms it will give the intermediaries, and how many intermediaries will be required, how many of these distribution centres will be required, and what type of support should the distributors be offered. Support with marketing, perhaps, support with advertising. Perhaps the product needs to be advertised in certain areas based on whatever segment of the market they're looking at. It might be that the advertisements are in trade journals, or it could be they're in customer journals and customer magazines, in the popular press. It depends. So there's a mutuality in purpose. The distributors want to move the products, and so does the business. So they have got an interest in collaborating and working together and keeping in touch about what is required. The type of control the manufacturer has over selling the product. Well, that might be a part of the contract. It may be that the company has a contract with the distributors and tells the distributors what they are allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, what prices to charge and how to deal with the customers and so on. It may be. It may be that that's resisted by the distributors. It may be that the activities of the business are in restraint of trade or may have legal issues or legal implications, that they can't control the distributors. But certainly there should be high levels of contact between the distributor and the producer, and there should be some agreement about how to deal with the market and how to deliver the good and satisfy the final customers. Then what are the implications of direct marketing? The direct marketing approach will require the business to go it alone. But to do that, it must develop a marketing strategy. It must develop a marketing team. It must build up an expertise of the market and incur a lot of costs in trying to determine what it is that the customers want in terms of price, quality, design, and so on. So there are a lot of issues involved in direct marketing. The marketing planning phase must take account of the types of distribution method used. The marketing planning phase, it must incorporate all of the issues associated with quality and design and the suitability of the product to meet customer needs. But it must also look at the distribution methods. It's pointless making the product in the business and then have no way of getting it out of the business, getting it to the final customer who's going to pay for it. So there must be thorough consideration of the distribution methods to be employed. There are 5 factors to consider in the management of product distribution. Facilities in place to manage the storage of depots. So when we're talking about distribution, goods must perhaps be stored, and that means some storage facility is required, and it needs management. So the company is going to distribute its product to some cooperating agency, a warehouse, or some sort of distributor. The company is going to distribute its product there. Well, it has to be stored and it has to be managed. Needless to say, if the product is perishable, there are going to be extra dimensions and extra considerations to be taken into account. But there must be management of storage and stock control facilities put in place to see what is in storage and what's available for the customers, and the rate at which the stock in the store is being depleted because of customer demand, the production levels to meet that, and there's quite a bit of paperwork and calculation to be done in order to synchronize production with sales and keep the stores stocked so the customers can get access to the product, and so on. But generally there is a management issue there in terms of storage. The supply of inventory throughout the distribution chain. It's important that the distribution chain know what's in stock. They should know what the demand for the product is, and they should know of any seasonal factors which may influence the demand. They know what the company is capable of producing. They know what's in stock, and it's important that the company can produce to replenish the stocks at a rate that keeps the customers happy, keeps the customers supplied. The type and method of transport, the time, the delivery, the schedules. Well, as I said earlier on, it could be by lorry, by van, by courier, by train, by ship. It depends. It depends on where the distributor is located. But it also depends on the time scale, how long has been allocated for distribution. How urgent is the product? And what's the nature of the product? If it's very bulky, or if it's very heavy, or if it's something very light, it'll influence the way distribution takes place. The methods of communication in place to take and process orders. It's important that there is good communications between the distributors and the producers. It's important that if the company is engaged in direct marketing, that it has good communications with its own people in the field, its own marketing people who are dealing with customers face to face, but they have got access back to the company to answer any questions or pose scenarios and get solutions. With the advent of internet technology, of course, communications is greatly facilitated. Even the use of mobile phones, or as the Americans call them, cell phones, even with the advent of those, that has been a big step forward in communications. It is easy to make contact with the base to find out what the quality of the product is, or what it's made from, what the components are, and what the supply will be. And so personnel in the field, marketing personnel out dealing with customers, are not cut off from the company. They still have a link back and can have any issues dealt with. So communications is extremely important. And of course, efficient packaging techniques are important. It's not good enough that the product be produced under very efficient methods, perhaps TQM and looking at various efficient methods of production and sequencing of machines and so on and so on, and then gets to the final stage and it has to be wrapped up in paper by somebody. That's not efficient. Efficiency is when the distribution system is also tuned up and efficient for the purpose for which it's required. It's important that the distribution system runs according to some designated plan, some efficient plan. It may be mechanized. Maybe the products coming off will go through some more mechanization and be wrapped professionally or boxed professionally or crated up or whatever it is, and dealt with in a very efficient manner because the distribution has been designed to be efficient. It would be wrong to have a very efficient production system and it gets to the end and there's a bottleneck because the distributors can't work that fast. They can't deal with the flow of production. So it must be efficient at the last point. Distribution planning. Well, distribution planning requires the following sequence of activities. First of all, distribution planning involves setting marketing objectives. What do the marketing people want in terms of volumes of production and the distribution centers that the output is going to go to? Who are the distributors? Where are they located? How much is being produced? I mean, clearly this information is of crucial importance to the distribution system within the business. There should be an analysis of internal and external conditions in distribution. The internal conditions, how efficient is the overall distribution part of the business in terms of taking the product off the line when it's finished and then dealing with it in a very efficient way. So the product is boxed up and presented and nicely presented, because this is a part of the marketing effort, that the product should look good. The packaging should be suitable for the quality of the product. And it's important that the internal conditions for distribution, for packaging and final distribution are efficient. But the external conditions should be efficient as well. It should be the case that the product can be moved. If it's a physical product, can be moved efficiently to the distributors. Perhaps moved efficiently and securely to the distributors. Evaluation of the importance of distribution in the marketing strategy. Now, the marketing strategy is looked at perhaps all aspects of the product and satisfying customer needs. It's looking at design, quality and so on, pricing and all of that. But it should also now be expanded to include distribution and the fact that distribution should be efficient, the product should be well presented, it should arrive safely, undamaged from its journey, and it should be capable of handling in an efficient manner by distributors. And overall, it paints a picture of an organization that is efficient right from start to finish, from the acquisition of raw materials at one end through the whole transformation process, the production process, up to distribution and including distribution, because they are all efficient parts of the organization. It reflects good on the organization. Developing a distribution policy. It's important that within the marketing planning framework we have the distribution policy, the distribution plan and policy. What's the number of intermediaries? What's the number of distributors the company will have? Where are they located? How much will they require? How are they dealt with? What's the communications channels? What issues should they arise? what issues can be dealt with by distribution or should be dealt with by marketing. There should be clear directives issued to the various departmental heads, distribution, marketing and so on, as to where queries go and who deals with them and what are the issues. So it should be very clear distribution policy. The company will use a certain type of distribution because of the nature of its product. It will use warehouses, it'll use depots somewhere else, it'll have a policy which will specify all of this, and it will be efficient because it will be subject to scrutiny and debate and analysis, and it'll develop over time to become even more efficient. That's the idea. Monitoring and setting of performance standards. Well, like any part of the business, performance indicators are used or can be used to show how efficient or how effective particular processes are. And if they don't meet benchmarks, then it triggers off intervention by management. Management become involved because the performance indicator has not been achieved. The target has not been achieved. Well, the same with distribution. There's no earthly reason as to why distribution should be exempt from having performance indicators. Looking at the time it takes to distribute a batch to a particular warehouse. It should be monitored, and there should be some measure of efficiency that management can deal with and can understand easily and investigate if it's not meeting the targets. So it's important that distribution is dealt with in the same way as the other parts of the business, who are run by monitoring, by control and by intervention if required. It's important to compare performance and take corrective action if it's needed. It's important to compare performance against indicators, as I've just said, against standards that are set, and then intervene. If the standard has not been achieved, that should trigger off some activity by management. It should involve management who will investigate what is the matter, what's the issue, and deal with that. And in that way, an efficient distribution system will emerge. Now, that completes our talk on distribution. Like I say about all of the other parts of the business, it's important. It's also important, perhaps is a better way of putting it. You should go back over the video, run it a couple of times and make your own notes and make sure you're clear about the importance of distribution and the way it's conducted and what are the issues. But that's all I'm going to deal with in this session, so I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.